Imagine Japan in 1941. The empire faces a brutal choice. The battleship Yamato stands almost finished. 72,000 tons of steel, 6,000 tons of precious fuel oil, and a crew of 2,700 men. She is the pride of the Imperial Navy. But Japan is running out of everything: oil, steel, and hope. What if, instead of launching her, Japan had scrapped her completely? What if all that metal, fuel, and manpower were turned into what Japan truly needed: guns, shells, and ammunition? The numbers are shocking. The impact would have been devastating. It would not have changed the final outcome, but it could have made the Pacific campaign far bloodier. Japanese tanks were terrible. The Type 97 Chiha weighed 15 tons. Its armor was so thin that American .50 caliber machine guns could punch straight through. At Saipan, entire tank formations were wiped out in minutes. More tanks would have changed nothing. Japan did not need armor. It needed firepower, machine guns, artillery, ammunition, and anti-aircraft guns. Weapons that could turn every Pacific island into a fortress of death. The Yamato contained 72,000 tons of material. Around 23,000 tons were armor plate. 40 to 50,000 tons were usable structural steel. That steel could have been transformed into weapons instead of a single warship. With it, Japan could have built 5,000 additional 105mm howitzers, spread across 30 of the most strategic islands: Okinawa, Iwo Jima, Saipan, Peleliu, and others. Major strongholds would receive 500 guns each. Medium islands 200. Smaller atolls 50. Imagine American Marines landing on those beaches under constant artillery fire. Shells exploding across every landing zone. No safe areas. No pauses to regroup. Every wave meeting walls of fire. 40,000 tons of Yamato steel could have produced 100,000 Type 92 heavy machine guns. Distribute them across the same 30 islands. Major ones like Iwo Jima and Okinawa could hold 3,000 each. Important positions like Saipan and Peleliu, 2,000. Small atolls, 500. Historically, Iwo Jima had about 700 machine guns. Add 3,000 more, and you get 3,700 total, more than 5 times the firepower. Each gun fires about 450 rounds per minute. Together, that is over 270,000 bullets every single minute. 4,500 bullets every second. The beach would not just take fire, it would become impassable. Water boiling from impacts, tracers forming solid walls of light. No gaps, no mercy. Yamato carried 1,000 massive shells, each weighing about 3,200 pounds. If that steel and propellant were converted into 75mm rounds, the result would be 250,000 shells. A single artillery piece fires 20 rounds per hour. That means 5,000 guns could fire continuously for 2.5 hours, or 1,000 guns could fire for 12 hours straight. Picture Iwo Jima. Not 40 minutes of bombardment, but 12 straight hours of explosions shaking the ground. If converted to 105mm shells instead, you would get 83,000 rounds. At Okinawa, where the battle lasted 82 days, Japanese guns often sat silent to save ammunition. With that much extra supply, they could fire 20 rounds per hour, every hour, for a full month. The brass, copper, and steel inside Yamato's fittings could produce tens of millions of rifle and machine gun rounds. At Tarawa, Japanese defenders ran low after only 3 days. Some bunkers went silent, not because the men were dead, but because they had no bullets left. With Yamato's metal, Every defender could have 500 rounds instead of 100, enough to keep firing all day. No rationing, no silence, just endless suppressive fire. Every Marine forced to crawl, pinned beneath a storm of bullets. Banzai charges that usually failed halfway through because rifles ran dry would now continue with full magazines. 400 rounds per man. They would not stop 50 meters from the line because their weapons were empty. They would keep coming until American fire physically stopped them. Every defensive position could fight until destroyed. Yamato also carried 162 25mm anti-aircraft guns. Spread those across the islands. Now, Tarawa, Peleliu, and Iwo Jima each have dozens of AA emplacements. American bombers that once flew unopposed would face walls of tracers. Dive bombers forced to pull up early. Torpedo planes flying higher and missing targets. Losses mounting. Carrier air groups taking longer to recover. Air superiority becoming costly. The sky itself turning dangerous. Then there is the fuel. Yamato stored about 6,300 tons. By 1944, Japan's fleet sat idle for lack of it. Those 6,000 tons could have powered 60 destroyers for full operations, or kept 30 carriers active for a week, or fueled 150 Zero fighters for their entire careers. A Zero consumed about half a ton per flight hour. That equals 12,000 flight hours, enough to train 200 pilots for 60 hours each. Instead of green rookies crashing during the Battle of the Philippine Sea, Japan would have had trained veterans. That battle might still end in defeat, but not in total massacre. The crew of 2,700 men could have been reassigned too, enough to man 50 submarines. Japanese submarines sank about 5 million tons of Allied shipping. 50 more could have added another million tons sunk. Or those sailors could have crewed 20 destroyer escorts guarding merchant convoys. American submarines destroyed 60% of Japan's shipping. 20 more escorts might have saved hundreds of thousands of tons of vital cargo, oil, food, ammunition, that historically never arrived. Altogether, scrapping Yamato would have meant 5,000 artillery pieces, 100,000 machine guns, tens of millions of bullets, 162 AA guns, 6,000 tons of fuel, and enough manpower for a submarine fleet. Now, imagine the consequences. Tarawa lasts 4 days instead of 3, with 5,000 American casualties instead of 3,000. Iwo Jima drags on for 50 days instead of 36, with 40,000 casualties instead of 27,000. Okinawa stretches to 100 days with even greater losses. Each island harder, each battle bloodier. Public pressure in America rising. Casualty estimates for invading Japan climbing from 1 million to nearly 1.5 million. Would it have changed the final outcome? No. America's industry was too vast, its resources too deep. Japan would still fall, but the path to victory would have been far more terrible. Every Marine landing under triple the firepower. Every bomber flying through thick anti-aircraft fire. Every soldier facing defenders who never ran out of bullets. That is the cost of pride. Trading thousands of practical weapons for one floating monument that fired its guns only once before dying in 2 hours. The Yamato was not just a ship. It was Japan's dream. A dream paid for in oceans of blood. Subscribe for more stories from World War II.